Italian Job, looking good.
Feeling good, Tommy boy. Hey, and Merry New Year.
Hey, Merry New Year to you as well. I know we communicated briefly over the Christmas holiday, and I know you had time to hunker down with your family, but I hope the remaining week of 2021 was a great one for you as well.
It was, like you said, man, we always try to focus on that Concentrica. And the reason we keep bringing up Concentrica is because it's so easy to get off track. But when you have a break from work, when you have some downtime, and let's be honest, when you're forced to focus on what's right in front of you, which happens to be in your household, it's easy to get your Concentrica in order. So I did use that time to spend with my wife, my two children, the dog, the extended family. It was a good time. But I'll tell you, I'm happy to be back in the saddle and get back to normalcy.
Yeah, routine is good. It's nice to take a breather, but at the end of the day, there's still things that are important. And obviously the Concentrica dials it all in. You don't take days off from that. And if you are, there's something going on that needs to be addressed. But it was a good year. We've reset in Greensboro. Shield Lock met today, and full transparency, after a really good honest conversation, we are shaking ourselves up a little bit and reducing our numbers. Seeing as the pod packers out there might remember, I couldn't even recite without really thinking about all 8 of us who was in my Shield Lock. And that is not a testimony to anything other than my poor memory. I love those guys. I love the guys, and I would lie down in traffic for every single one of them. And we just need to look at who's accelerating in what direction and make sure that we're not stressing each other out, because our focal points for this year are in different directions, right? So anybody out there who might be going through a tough time with their Shield Lock, I encourage you to bring it up with the fellas. If you need a third party or an anonymous donor, as it were, to give opinions, reach out to us on at F3SWT on Twitter, and also Italian Job or Tommy Boy, both at f3nation.com, and we'll be happy to walk you through it, or at least offer some advice. How's that sound?
That sounds like you've done this before. So TB, to focus on what we're going on into the new year, focusing on where we're going in this podcast, what are we talking about today?
Yep, great question. So today, if you've been listening to this week's worth of F3 podcasts in 2022 rather, you'll know that we're looking into resetting some things. So today on SWT, we're going to focus on the F3 250. It's a metric that's been out there for quite a while. There's some spreadsheets that float around. We have that tool to provide to you, and the links, we'll get to that in just a moment. We'll talk about successes and failures, maybe some roadblocks to avoid, and some tips of the trade when it comes to tracking 250 workouts minimum across the year that we now know is 2022.
Cool. Yeah, that's
so that being, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you say it all the time. If it's meaningful, it's measurable. And that's why when you say the spreadsheet, the tools are out there. If you don't put this stuff down in writing or don't follow some kind of a metric to keep on track, it's real simple to get a quarter of the way through the year and say, how many workouts have I done this year? How far off am I off track? So that's the reason that the tool is out there. And like TV, like you said, we're going to have that in the show notes so guys can just grab onto it, especially since it's still early in the year. As of the recording today, it's January the 6th. So you only have to remember 6 days. So that's pretty good. That's right. Pretty good.
That's right. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because for me nowadays, it's so much habit that I don't think too much about it. But I believe the stipulations are anything over 30 minutes counts as a quote unquote workout.
And that's right. And it's not just F3 workouts. It could be, if it's 30 minutes, I like to think of it as not necessarily walking the dog, but if you're walking the dog with a rucksack, that's going to count.
Correct.
For instance, yesterday I went for a 2-mile walk, which was 35 minutes. But I had my son on my back the whole time. I had my 30-pound son on my shoulders the whole time. And you better believe I'm counting that, because I was 35 minutes, 2 miles, and a 30 pounder on my shoulders. So I'm going to count that as a workout for the day. But that's not F3. I wasn't with other F3 guys. I wasn't even wearing an F3 shirt. So, but I'm counting it. That counts for a workout for me.
That's right. No, I completely agree. Listen, fellas, it comes down to this. The tracking is important. If you're anything like me, if you're not going back in and dropping in your numbers, I used to do it weekly, but then I got into a habit of kind of like hump day and then Saturday. It's real easy for me. It was real easy for me to slip off of doing it. And then sometimes even just lying to myself. The adjuster comes in and just says, just tell your shield lock that you did this many workouts. And we know that those are the adjusters that we're here to conquer. And we're called to be better and different men. And that's how we're different. We're honest with ourselves and we're honest with each other.
That's right.
So the best way to understand your progress and change is really through measuring your progress. But in F3 terms, we're talking about acceleration, right? If we're driving towards progress, we're driving towards actual change and better change. We're talking about acceleration. There's an analogy that you shared earlier, Italian Job. If you don't mind walking the Podpackers through that.
Yeah, man. So this is something that I've done in the corporate setting, but I've also brought it into my personal goals for the year, and it's called SMART goals. And it's an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And I'm going to walk through each one of those. So if you're setting goals for the year, you want to set SMART goals. And what I mean by specific, you want to make your goals specific and narrow for more effective planning. So it's not just, I want to work out more. It means I want to work out X number of times per week or X number of times per month, or I want to run X number. You need to be specific in what that goal is. The second one is measurable, which is what we're talking about today. It's defining what evidence will prove you're making progress and reevaluate when necessary. So you have to measure your progress. If that's in your personal life, if that's in your fitness life, it's in your faith, you just want to be able to track this. And in order for this goal to work, you have to measure your progress on that. You want to make sure your goals are attainable. You want to make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. For instance, not a good idea to say, I want to run a marathon in 2 weeks. If you've done no training whatsoever, a couch to marathon, unless you're uber fit and have running in your background, is probably not attainable. But if your goal is, I would like to run a mile within 2 weeks, I'd like to run a 5K within the first quarter of the year. If you are setting attainable goals, these goals are much more likely for you to be able to follow and achieve. The next one is relevant. Your goals should align with your values and your long-term objectives. When it comes to fitness, you want to make sure your fitness goals are relevant. You can figure out what that looks like for you, but it's also a good idea in your personal life or your professional life to set relevant goals, because if your goal is to professionally, you want to advance your career, but in order to advance your career, you think, well, I'm going to go and get a degree that's not relevant to the job that I'm seeking. It may not be relevant to the goal that you're trying to attain. So relevant goals. And then the final one is time-based. It's setting a realistic, ambitious end date for task prioritization and motivation. And what we mean by time-based is simply this. If you are going to set a goal, you need to set a deadline to achieve that goal. And so you're going to set a time. I want to be able to achieve the following by this date, because if you don't set a date, it will be an evergreen, never changing, never getting to the final destination. You've got to set your endpoint to know when you've reached it and to make sure that you've gotten there. So again, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And that's your SMART goals.
And that's the beauty of the F3 250 is it nails all of those. It couldn't be any clearer. You want to work out 250 times over the course of 2022. F3 workouts or not, you know that they need to be 30 minutes plus. Look, anybody who's listening to this is already an F3. So it's certainly on brand. And that's why I think this is such an easy tool to use. Guys, when we say the tool, there's a spreadsheet, again, that we'll share in the show notes. You literally just drop in whatever it is you've done. There's a column in there that has a section for your own personal notes, whether it is you want to reflect on what worked, what didn't work, what workouts you hit, what AOs you went to. You can look back at the end of 2022 and see what patterns you have that are placed in there. It's just a handy, simple tool that you can duplicate across the nation.
Yep.
I think too, just to put a pin in it, that I always think of something that my dad used to recite to me, that a dream without a plan is just a wish. So putting this into place is a really good way to jump the wish hurdle and put it into reality. You and I have both used the F3250. Any tips or success stories, failure stories you want to share to help packs?
Personally, I think if you're going to use the tool, you want to stay on top of the tool. And you mentioned that earlier. And what I mean by that is you don't want to put it off for too long. It's kind of like a back blast. I like to write my back blast either before the workout even happens and I already have the baseline to drop it in, or I want it done within 24 hours, because in 3 days from now, I'm going to forget what did we do in the last 20 minutes of the workout. I'm going to confuse things, forget things. So when it comes to measuring your progress, it's not a bad idea to do it after the workout. Just kind of plug it in. You can save it on your phone and literally just say, this was it. You just tag it and move on. Because if you wait 3 weeks to load those things, like you said, you will either forget or you may fabricate things and say, yeah, I worked out 5 times last week when you really worked out 3 times. So I would just say staying on top of it and making sure that you're making those updates to the spreadsheet routinely, so that you don't forget that you may have missed one or you did. Heck, you might even shortchange yourself.
Yeah. I think if I were to add anything to that, when I was really humming with the 250, almost to a fault, meaning that my priorities were, my Concentrica was out of alignment. I think I was posting more out in the gloom than I was posting, quote unquote, at home. I broke 230. In fact, it was 437 posts in 1 year. That was 2019. About broke myself in half as well. But it was to see that number start to come into fruition and really start motoring with it was great. It's where I first discovered rucking and got into that whole culture and just really opened up some doors. However, at the sacrifice of things that are vastly more important. But to take us into to kind of segue into the next thing, the failure when I wasn't holding myself accountable is the realization that I can't just hold myself accountable. I didn't have a battle buddy. And so I want to take a minute to talk about a battle buddy, because if you're reading Q Source, and if you're not, you should, it's available for free on f3nation.com. Pick up the chapter of accountability. One quote that you'll see is that no man can watch his own six. And therein introduces the concept of a battle buddy. Anybody out there who's been through a grill ruck fondly remembers their battle buddy. Maximus was mine at Grill Ruck 22. It's the guy who's going to watch your six, whether it's you're stepping away from the group to hit a bio break, and take a leak in the woods, or if you're just sucking wind, and he's that voice in your ear that reminds you that you're not just here for yourself, and that you can do this. You have it within you to keep moving forward. Any thoughts from you, Ajay, on a battle buddy scenario, especially when it comes to the 250?
Yeah, the battle buddy is a good, well, for those who haven't attended a Grow Ruck or a Go Ruck event, a battle buddy serves 2 purposes. One, it's to keep you accountable, to keep moving, to have that guy in your ear saying, hey, brother, you can keep doing this. And then the other one is to make sure every number is accounted for, to make sure that when we get back in a group, if we started with 101, we came back with 101. Think of it like the parable of the shepherd and the lost sheep, leaving the 99 to find the one. If you have a battle buddy, you don't have to leave the 99 to find the one. You got one to find the one. And so you just want to keep track with your buddy. And, it sounds cliche, battle buddy. Sounds like, somebody that I would in elementary school, make sure you have a buddy. But seriously, the battle buddy in the F3 250, it's a guy who's going to keep you accountable and who's going to call you out. We keep mentioning the 250 goal, but I don't want to dissuade guys who think 250 is unattainable. You can use the same spreadsheet and set your own goal. You can say, I want to do 300, I want to do 150, whatever that number is, and just use that spreadsheet because it totals it all up down at the bottom. So that's right. In order for you to get the 250, you've got to work out like 4.9 days per week. So let's just say 5 days per week. But if you say 5 days is not achievable for me, I can do 3. Great. plug it in.
Yep.
It'll tell you your progress as you track towards it, but have that battle buddy who's going to say, hey brother, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? I haven't even share this. I mean, you can share the file with a friend. You can make it a Google form where your buddies can check in on it themselves and say, not only have I not seen you, I checked in on the form and you're not even posting. Because a lot of guys will say, oh, I just posted across town. That's why you haven't seen me. But if it's not being logged and that guy doesn't see you personally, at least he can see your progress on the F3 250 form.
Look, we've all said pictures or it doesn't count, or we've all seen on Twitter, if it's not on Strava, it didn't count. This is just one more way of saying there's guys that are keeping an eye out for you, for better or for worse, but this is all about getting better together. Yep. And I highly encourage you to get a guy who, again, is accelerating at the same rate as you are, or at least has the same fitness goals. To reiterate what you said a minute ago, if you want to really get into rucking and your goal is to go, I'm going to make something up, go 5 miles carrying an 80-pound sandbag on your back, your best bet is to find a guy who's got a similar goal rather than you want to find a guy who wants to run that Chicago Marathon. Those are both phenomenal goals in two different directions.
Yes.
But, if you find a crazy person that wants to run the Chicago Marathon with an 80-pound sandbag on his back, first, report him to the authorities. Secondly, maybe there's some things that you can glean from one another. But no, it's a heck of a tool. And look, there's lots of tools out there. I know I've had a ton of success pairing, and anybody would, pairing calorie burn versus calorie intake. So food and exercise, king and queen. And I use Lose It. There's an app called Lose It. It's free. You can pay if you want, but it helps me match my calorie intake with my calorie burn. Italian Job, is there one that you recommend that you can suggest?
Yeah, I really like the app MyFitnessPal. It's also free, but it's as simple as if you're tracking your calorie intake. I mean, you can take a picture of the label of whatever the food is, or you can, even if you don't have a label, let's just say it's a small apple. You can plug that in. It will tell you the calories. It'll tell you the sugar, the carbs, everything. And as you're looking at that, if you're setting a goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds, it will calculate for you and say your caloric intake needs to be 2,500 calories for the day. And it will track as you're plugging it in. This includes snacks, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It tracks it all in. And you can look at it and say, all right, it's 5:30. I just finished dinner. I've hit my max. I can't eat anything else for the day. It's all logged in. And when you submit that, that's it. It's in. It's tracked. It's there. And you can pull it up and see how you're progressing. You can set a goal, a weight loss goal. You can see your caloric intake. You can see it. But it's MyFitnessPal. I know that Rapido and Hello Kitty are both using that. It's a great tool. It costs you nothing. And it also gives you that accountability that if I'm writing it down or putting it in a spreadsheet, first off, I have no idea how many calories are in a Clementine orange. I have no idea how many calories I know how many calories are in a 12-ounce soda. It's on the can. Yep. It tells me that. But an orange doesn't come with that label. An apple doesn't come with that label. But MyFitnessPal has all that stuff pre-calculated in. And if it doesn't exist, whatever you're eating doesn't exist in that form, you can submit it yourself. You can tag the label, put it in there, and then it's kind of a user sourced where other folks can use it. But I have yet to come across anything that I have not been able to find by just typing in whatever the food is. It'll say, do you mean this? And you can select it and it tracks your calories.
Yeah. And we're just talking tips to the iceberg here, fellas. There are dozens of free apps out there that you can pick and choose from. These are both great because it does track caloric intake as well as caloric output. That's a big fancy algorithm, which connects nicely to the 250, which is a very straightforward column X, column Y kind of thing. You're off to the race. Or row X, column Y, you're off to the races.
Yep.
So Italian Job, what is the challenge worth trying for this week?
I wrote something this morning that I kind of feel like captured the acceleration and measurable piece. And so I'll just share it real briefly. You cannot steer a parked car. Change doesn't happen by being stagnant. Start moving towards the change you want. Progress doesn't happen without acceleration. So that challenge worth trying, why don't we think about it this way? Why don't you find a battle buddy? Why don't you consider, not only during workouts, not only during hard workouts, ruck workouts, just finding somebody to keep you accountable, ask him to keep you accountable, and hold him accountable as well. So work together on that, finding that battle buddy, because acceleration will not happen if you stay stagnant, if you stay still. And the way to get moving is to move with somebody else.
I love it. That's a great one. Totally dig it. Yeah. And if you're not in the Shield Lock, fellas, start seeking that out. Can't stress that enough. This battle buddy could be in your Shield Lock, or you could help to build a bigger relationship with a new guy who's not in your Shield Lock. You really can't go wrong as long as you're holding one another accountable to your specified SMART goals. All right.
Cool. Good deal.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, I'm excited to venture through 2022 with you on the Stuff Worth Trying podcast. Fellas, for the final time, we'll be putting the link to the F3 250 on our show notes. But as always, this kind of good stuff lives for real on stuffworthtrying.com. And if you guys across the F3 nation, across the F3 universe have stuff worth trying that you need to get out there, let us know, because our role is to take that from you and put it out in the stratosphere. Italian Job, as always. I love you, brother, and look forward to being with you next week.
Man, love you too, bro. And push it hard. Find that battle buddy. Keep it going. And if you need anybody to hold you accountable, I'll be there for you, man.
Oh, I know you will.